The Green Bay Packers are done messing around. Welcome back to the show. I am Josh Blinder. I break down, predict, go over, give you analysis for college football and the NFL. Obviously, the NFL draft was so recent that we have to dive into teams that had narratives built out of what they did specifically. Every team goes in with a game plan of what they're trying to accomplish. Some are able to do that, some are not. But we do know that the Green Bay Packers took a wide receiver in the first round of the NFL draft. Matthew Golden being selected in that spot at 23rd overall by Green Bay, player coming out of Texas. The main thing that I want to get across here is competition. So Matt LaFleur went into this draft. It's obvious now that we can see that they were going to get better at the wide receiver position. For the last couple of years, could talk about the depth of that Green Bay Packer wide receiver room. They even brought in a guy like Nicole Hardman, Super Bowl champion, but Dontayvion Wicks, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, a number of guys. But if you look around the NFL, these are second, third type of players to fill up the roster. None of those players, even within division, are going to be number ones. Do you think that the Detroit Lions are going to have any of those guys over Amon-Ra St. Brown, the Chicago Bears, or over Rome or DJ? Green Bay with Addison and Jefferson. So Green Bay was needing more talent at the wide receiver spot, someone that can take the top off the defense. And if we think about Green Bay and the style, specifically with the history they've had at that position, they haven't had a burner type of guy. Devontae Adams wasn't going to win races with the secondary. He was going to be the best route runner in the National Football League. He was going to use his frame, 6'3", 220 pounds, to create his own separation, to put himself in a spot where he's going to be open even when he's covered because of his contested catch ability and the fact that him and Aaron Rodgers were on point. They had that chemistry built up so that they could beat any other teams. You go back to Randall Cobb and Jordy Nelson, nothing special about who they were, if you were to call them quote-unquote athletes, but they were certainly special with the production that they had over the years. Donald Driver, Greg Jennings, now we're talking about guys that you could call a little bit more talented. This isn't a knock on Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb. It's just listing some guys that had different playing styles, and if you break down who they were as players, the whole thing is different. So Matthew Golden, first rounder, 23rd overall, comes out of Texas Speed University, essentially. We saw Isaiah Bond run a 4.4, Xavier Worthy running the fastest combine in history over there. A.D. Mitchell ran like a 4.33, 4.32 in the 2024 draft. So you know what they've been trying to do. But the pick that really struck me, and I'm sure you, was them going off and deciding that we're going to add to that room and we're going to take Savion Williams, spending a third-round draft choice on him, a guy that's 6'5", over 220 pounds, running very well, and bringing that physical nature as well as being able to take the top off a defense. A round 3 type of pick is not spent on a flyer. It is spent on a guy that you think can be productive for your football team. Just look at the Browns. They took Dylan Gabriel. They want to create competition. If they end up taking Shador, they want to have the best quarterback, an option of guys within that room. I compare that to Green Bay with the number of wide receivers through there now. They are going to create an environment where the best player is going to hit the field. And Matthew Golden's not the best of the bunch. He's not going to be starting for Green Bay, but you're going to see very quickly if you are a Green Bay Packer fan. Obviously, I am not, but you can respect good choices when they are made. People are going to immediately start talking about the comparisons. Well, Chicago took Luther Burden a little bit later on, and he was an extremely productive wide receiver, and I've already heard all of it from Bears fans that he's better than Matthew Golden, a guy that had been with Houston and then goes to Texas, has a terrific season. This video isn't a comparison about that. Maybe we should make one, but when you bring in a guy that runs sub 4.3 into that room, you are again making that statement that we want to be fast, and then you go with Savion, we're bringing in an element of size. That Matt LaFleur is going to have the best 2 wide receivers, the best 3 wide receivers, the best 1 wide receiver when we're in a jumbo package to be on that field specifically. If you're not blocking, you're not going to be receiving the football. If you're not getting open consistently and catching the football, think of all of the drop problems that the Packers have had just in recent memory. So that was, without a doubt, the direction they were going, because they've been pretty defensive heavy. Just immediately comes to mind with guys like Quay Walker, Lucas Van Ness that they've decided to pick. They had opportunities to go in the direction of defense. There was still a ton of talent available on the board when they were picking in the third round, but you have to like what Green Bay did. Again, when you talk about teams that have a lot of success, often they're going to try and replicate what history did. Like Green Bay in the late 2000s, the early 2010s. I mentioned Donald Driver and Greg Jennings. In those deep wide receiver rooms, we ended up seeing James Jones come through there, a good tight end. The running backs were the main concern. Well, you've got your running back. The O-line is filled out very well for you. The main concern of every Packer fan, and I speak to a lot of them, has been, where's the go-to target? Who is the guy that's going to consistently get open? And Packer fans didn't want Emeka Egbuka. They didn't want the pristine type of guy that's the best culture player and he's going to rise up draft boards just because of who he is and being a great producer for the locker room, not just on the field. No, they wanted a burner that's going to get open consistently, be a home run threat, and going to elevate what their offense is. Because if we take a look at who they were in that playoff game against the Eagles, Philly blew them out of the water. It was not a tight game because they were better in all three phases. Philly had a better offensive line, better pass rush. They had more talented wide receivers. Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, are we going to compare that to what the Green Bay roster was? Not to say they're not deep. We've talked about the depth, but again, requiring something else. What's, again, interesting about the history of it is with Aaron Rodgers, a Super Bowl quarterback, with Brett Favre for a number of years when he was playing good football in the 2000s, they did not draft a wide receiver. They weren't willing to put the capital into that position. So it makes you think, what effect did that have on the relationship of Aaron Rodgers? We certainly know that it is very well documented. He had wanted a wide receiver a couple years ago. They could have taken a wideout and they go with a quarterback. How much did that help the Green Bay Packer team overall? When you have Aaron Rodgers winning those MVPs, what was it, back-to-back, and they are taking a quarterback? Just to think for a second here what they could have been if they had spent that pick on someone else. But again, the future of your quarterback position is in Jordan Love. So now you are happy that they had made that choice. It's just fun a little bit to reminisce on how effective those Packer teams were. And why were they? Because they had Devontae Adams. They had a number one threat. And the only concern that I currently have with Matthew Golden is just going to be the Texas transition to playing in Green Bay. It truly is just weather. You can be a lot faster when it's warm outside and the hits don't quite feel the way that they do in cold weather. I know that this is a tale as old as time in the sense of players going from the heat to colder weather, but Green Bay is different. It's even different from Chicago. It's colder than Chicago is, and it gets cold in the north. Spent a lot of time in the Midwest, and it gets cold at the start of early October. We're talking about him playing games in early October. They're going to be colder than any football games that he has ever played in his entire career. And I immediately think of Christian Watson at the end of the season playing the Chicago Bears in a cold weather game, and he was, a little bit dinged up, ends up getting a really bad injury in that game, and there was no doubt how much that impacted Green Bay losing to their rival. After losing what I would call their number one wide receiver, him and Reed are, in the argument for the top two. But overall, you have to like what you saw from the Green Bay Packers from an impartial perspective in taking that big swing. Because at that point in the draft, it was Matthew Golden or it was Luther Burden. Those were the two last burners, and they went with a guy that had run a faster 40, had produced at a relatively similar level, and has an element to have a higher ceiling. They might be the same level now, but where is the competition in the Chicago Bears room? Oh, my goodness, they're just all fighting at the watering hole for targets with Rome Odunze and DJ Moore bringing him in. Immediately, Ben Johnson's talking about the wide receiver one role is not solidified. So immediately we see where the NFC North is shifting. It is towards offense. It is towards wide receiver getting faster. We saw the offensive lines of Minnesota Vikings and Detroit Lions. Donovan Jackson goes to Minnesota. The Detroit Lions, they went with defensive line with Tyreek Williams. So getting better in the trenches. And the Bears and Packers deciding that they were needing depth at the wide receiver spot. This was a lot of fun to make and go into. I'm going to definitely come out with more rival Green Bay Packers content because it's great to get know your enemy a little bit more, and just a whole lot of respect for that franchise. That is what it is all about, is spreading love of the game and not just spewing some BS about the team, but it's actually diving into a very good move of them picking him, and it was gutsy, and I did not want them to make it, and that tells you, if you're a Green Bay Packer fan, that me not wanting you to make it after watching a lot of college football, a lot of Matthew Golden, goes to show you that it was a good selection. So thank you so much for watching this. We're going to continue to pour out football content, college, NFL, coming right at you. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you at the show next time.